Welcome, friends. I have appeared before you today with a true story of darkness and mystery. You are watching the True Shadow Hauntings. Today's horror incident is a true story that happened to a person named Tobias. Tobias, who had immense faith in science, had his life changed on a terrifying night in Colorado. Last November, while stranded in a snowstorm in room 105 of Aspen's The Gray Pine Inn, he came face to face with an unknown terror. Before hearing the incident, if you are new to our channel, then subscribe right now and stay with us by giving a like to the video, because one of your likes and subscribes encourages us to find more terrifying stories and bring them before you. My name, Tobias. In the middle of November last year, I had to go for a site visit of a construction project in the Aspen area of Colorado. Those who know about Colorado's winter, they will understand how uncertain the weather there is. In the afternoon, suddenly a snowstorm started. As a result, the highway became completely blocked. Forced by circumstances, I decided to spend the night in an old Victorian-style guest house a few miles inside from the main road. Its name was the Gray Pine Inn. After reaching the motel, the first thing that caught my eye was an unusual silence there. In highway motels, there is usually always some kind of mechanical sound, the hum of a vending machine or the sound of a heater. But here, everything was as still as stone. The gaze of the old man at the reception was very mysterious. While handing me the key to room number 105, he said in a low voice, "If you hear any sound at night, please do not open the door." I didn't give the matter any importance. I thought maybe it was the nuisance of some mountain wild animal. My room was at the very end of the corridor. As soon as I opened the heavy wooden door, a strange musty smell hit my nose, as if the room had been kept closed for decades. The furniture in the room was quite old-fashioned, heavy velvet curtains and a huge king-size bed. After turning on the room's heater, I noticed there was no change in temperature in one corner of the room. Even though the heater was running at maximum capacity, that specific corner was cold as ice. I thought maybe there was an insulation problem. When it was around 12 at night, I was preparing to sleep after finishing work on the laptop. Just then I felt someone was walking inside the room. Footprints were not falling on the carpet, true, but the wooden floorboards were creaking. I turned on the light, but there was no one else in the room but me. At that very moment, my hair stood on end when I saw, right behind my reflection in the bathroom mirror, a pale-colored shadow standing still. The room became so silent then that I could clearly hear my own heart palpitations. After seeing that faint pale figure in the mirror, my whole body seemed to freeze like stone. I am Tobias, a rational man who has always believed in science, but at that moment, standing in that room 105 in Colorado, all my logic was shattered to dust. I suddenly turned back, but no one was there. Yet the strange stillness of the air and the bone-chilling cold was screaming at me that there was someone else in the room. It was then about 1:50 a.m. The snowstorm outside had become more intense. The window glasses were shivering at the whistling sound of the wind. I tried to convince myself that this might be the exhaustion of a long journey or altitude sickness. But the real horror began right after going to bed. Whenever I tried to close my eyes, it felt like someone was touching their ice-cold finger on my forehead. I sat up with a start, but in front of my eyes, only the pitch darkness of the room. Suddenly, the room temperature dropped so much that smoke started coming out of my mouth. At that very moment, I felt a huge stone had pressed down on my chest. In paranormal terms, many want to dismiss this as sleep paralysis, but what was happening to me was extremely real and physical. My breath was stopping. I felt someone was strangling my throat. Not any visible hand, rather an invisible strong band was squeezing my windpipe. I wanted to scream, but my tongue seemed glued to the roof of my mouth. The most terrifying thing was my physical deterioration. My pulse rate increased abnormally, and a high-pitched piercing sound started in my ears. It felt like my brain would burst and blood would come out. Suddenly, I noticed my smartwatch kept on the bed was giving a critical alert of heart rate. The pulse rate had exceeded 170. My whole body was then drenched in sweat, yet the room temperature was then below freezing. I saw with blurred eyes a thick black smoke was slowly floating towards me from that dark corner of the room. From inside that smoke, two vivid eyes looking at me were laughing cruelly. I felt like I was having a heart attack. I tried to roll off the bed onto the floor so that I could at least reach the reception phone. But as soon as I put my feet on the floor, it felt like someone had sucked away all the strength from under my feet. My hands and feet were turning blue, and my body was shaking with intense convulsions. We always think of calling 911, but my hand was not in a condition to go towards my phone then. That invisible assassin did not just put fear in my mind, he was literally sucking away my life force. Gasping on the floor, at one point I felt my consciousness was slowly fading away. That sinister silence of room number 105 was ready to swallow me up. That night of mine was not just a ghostly experience. It was an unequal duel with death, where the opponent was invisible and unstoppable. When consciousness returned, the pale light of dawn was peeking into the room through the heavy curtains of the window. I discovered myself on that cold wooden floor of room number 105. My whole body was still numb, and on the throat the bluish marks of that invisible hand's pressure were clearly visible. Strangely, the snowstorm outside had stopped, and a post-mortem silence prevailed all around. I somehow stood up staggering, and without thinking of anything, I ran out of that cursed room straight towards the reception. My physical condition was so miserable then that it felt like I had aged 10 years in one night. That old man was still sitting at the reception. As soon as he saw me, the coffee mug in his hand fell to the floor with a loud noise. In his face, more than fear, there was surprise. He said in a faint voice, You are alive?" Hearing this word of his, a cold stream ran down my spine. I grabbed him and threatened him with the police. Then, trembling, he took out an old, dusty local newspaper cutting and the hotel's old register from the drawer. What I saw there, I was not at all prepared to know. Exactly 37 years ago, on this very day, a famous medical surgeon committed suicide in room number 105. Was that he used to conduct some forbidden and sinister experiments on his patients, as a result of which many innocent people had died. When his misdeeds began to be leaked, then he took refuge in this hotel and lost his life by injecting a special kind of toxin into his own body late at night. Before dying, he reportedly said he would continue his incomplete experiment even after death. That sudden drop in room temperature and sucking of human life force was actually the result of the incorporeal presence of that surgeon, or the doctor. In folklore, it is called energy vampire, or such a ghost that keeps itself alive by sucking the life force of living humans. The old man admitted that those who stayed in this room in the last 2 decades, none of them could come out in a healthy condition the next morning. Either they died of heart attack or lost their mental balance forever. I was the first person who for some miraculous reason survived that attack. Maybe my willpower or that alarm on my smartwatch did not let me become completely unconscious. I left the hotel at that very moment and got admitted straight to a hospital in Denver. The doctors found the presence of some chemicals in my blood test, which is impossible to be in the human body in normal conditions. After taking therapy for a long 3 months, I have been able to return to normal life. But even today, I cannot turn off the lights before sleeping at night. That Gray Pine Inn of Colorado may be closed now, but that invisible assassin of room number 105 still haunts my nightmares. This experience has taught me that behind the glittering modern civilization, some dark corners have remained where science still admits defeat.
So friends, how did you like this terrifying true story? Do let us know by commenting. Your opinions help us to improve our next videos. That's all for today. We'll see you again very soon with a new hair-raising incident. Has any such supernatural or eerie incident happened in your life or with someone you know? If so, then you can send us your experience of that true story. You can email us or directly send a message to our Facebook page. Our email and Facebook page links are given in the description box.